Whether it's an alligator or a crocodile. This dude. All right, anyway, back to the graphing. So, with tangents, listen, with tangents in the past, like, they'll always start you at 0, but you guys hate it when it starts like halfway through the function, so I've moved the parent so that now you've got a full cycle every time you do this. So I go through and I do my asymptotes, and then it's -1, 0, 1, and it should look like a cubic function. I told kids in first period we will not draw it like it is one of those S's that we all tried to make in middle school. It's not all pointy and stabby. No, I'm not against it. I'm just against it when you're trying to graph a tangent function. All right. Bueno? All right, so here are your properties for your tangent function. All right, can I scroll a little bit? We got the properties or no? No? Well, we're graphing cotangent next. Oh, I call the health insurance company. We do not get massages as a benefit. Agreed. Oh, I printed first period in black and white. I don't even care anymore. That's fine. They sit over there most of the time. All right, how much longer we need? They're just writing down properties right now. All right. I'm going to start passing back your guys' quiz, but I'm also going to scroll so we can start graphing cotangent. So this one's cotangent. Ready, let's go. It's the inverse function. This is what I get for using my finger instead of... Yeah, you just needed to tell me that you knew where it came from. Enough. All right, can I scroll? So we've got properties for cotangent. And then I've got two examples. Did we want to do both? Do we just want to do one? What are we thinking? One's tangent and the other one's cotangent. Should we just do both? Okay. I saw Brady said he's retiring, but I'm like, okay, honey. Mm-hmm. I was going to say, that's basically my stepkid going, yeah, I'll totally call you if I'm stuck on my homework. Never call. Bless you. All right, can I scroll? Can I at least go past odd? Are we doing 2 advisories next week? 8th and 9th? 8th and 9th, it looks like. All right, we starting to be ready? 65. Ready? So when it comes to tangent and cotangent, when you go to find your period, is that still 2 pi divided by c, or is that now changed? How often did they cycle? Pi. So to find period, it's now pi over c. So in this case, do I have a c value? No, so it's just pi. All right, this is still my phase shift. This is my vertical shift. And how are we feeling about the tables? Are the tables still, we're liking them? It's definitely a little easier. All right. So cotangent started at 0. And then it was undefined, and pi over 4 was what, 1? Or negative 1? Without me having to scroll back up. Positive 1. 1, 0, negative 1. I'm pretty sure. Alright, so the only thing I'm really changing is I'm now subtracting pi over 2 off of my x's and minus 1 off of my y's. So if it repeats every pi, because if you think in terms of tangents, they've only got that one little cycle with the asymptote, so I need only half, and I've got a full cycle. Yes. So anything that's in here with your x, like if there was a c, you do the opposite of what it shows. So if it says multiply by 3, you're really dividing by 3. All right, if it says add pi over 2, you subtract pi over 2. Easy enough? All right. You want to try tangent with your neighbor? And then I've got one out of the 7.8 homework. It's a word problem, but I'm going to go over it with you because it's Sullivan and he's kind of stupid. Have you guys noticed I haven't asked you about amplitude yet? It goes up forever and ever and ever and down forever and ever. So it's still just a vertical stretch, and it's a reflection, but we don't have a up this many, down this many. So that's why amplitude hasn't really existed. Yay? Alright. And when I graphed it, I just was like, oh, okay, it's 5. It's a little bit off, but. What do we think? Not bad? Do they? Okay. I'm wondering the case they're talking about in Michigan that brought them all out. I'll have to text my dad. He'll know. All right. We want to go through one of those 7.8 homework problems? All right. So 7.8. This one was number 33. And so this is the one where it talks about the water and tides. So I have some graphs. You found a news story? There we go. All right. So they tell me a whole bunch of information about these tides. They tell me that the tide between high tide and high tide is 12 hours and 25 minutes. What does that sound like it could have to do with? About half the day. But what do we call it when it goes peak to peak? Nope. Peak to peak this way. No. Period. Okay? So my period is 12 hours 25 minutes. Okay? Amplitude goes up and down. Oh, that's a dip. We don't normally call valleys peaks. A trench, maybe. Alright, so according to NOAA, we're looking at Charleston. They tell me that I have a high tide. So, high tide at 1:10 in the morning. So 1.2 hours. And then later on in the paragraph, it tells me that the height of the water is 5.73 feet at high tide. So that is an entire coordinate. And then I had a low one, and I'll put this as 1:10 a.m. Low tide, they said, happened at 7:44 a.m. And they give us that as 7.73 hours. And then they tell us that the low tide was at negative 0.15. Yeah, so when the tide recedes, like if you're looking at it from the edge of the water, high tide is when the water comes up and it takes away your beach. Low tide is when you get more beach. Yeah. Oh, if you look at Lake Mead, that's just, there is no tide. Oh, yeah. That was this class. No more tide. All right, so I have a peak here, I got a dip, and then I've got another peak. I personally like drawing it, even if it doesn't make a whole ton of sense, because then I know, okay, period from here to here is 12 hours and 25 minutes, so 25 out of 60 minutes from peak to peak. I know that this peak right here happens at 1:10 in the morning. This dip right here happens at 7:44 in the morning. All right. So the first question they go through and ask me is, when is the next high tide? All right. Well, if I know it takes me 12 hours and 25 minutes, and I know where I had my first high tide, couldn't I just add those two together? So 1:10 a.m. plus 12 hours and 25 minutes, that puts me at what? 1 p.m. with 35 minutes, right? And then for B, they want us to actually go through and write the formula. Now, because Sullivan is a butthole and he likes torturing people, he wrote it as a sine wave. And we sat here struggling for about 10-15 minutes to figure out how the heck we were going to write this as a sine wave, because remember, sine waves start like right in between. So now I got to figure out where that stupid point is. Cosine would have been a much easier function. Why? Well, so cosine starts at a peak though, right? So I know if this is midnight, I only have to shift it that far. So just because he says do it with sine, I'm okay if you guys switch it to cosine. If you're like, hey, this one's easier and this is y, I'm perfectly fine with that. So we leave some blanks, cosine, because Sullivan's stupid. I don't know. We tried even doing a trig regression, and I was like, I got nothing. Yeah, no. It's Sullivan. He's not dead. He thinks he's got the power of an old dead dude in math. He does not. All right. Yeah, that's paperwork and all. Alright, so we did just talk about the fact that I could do this little shift right here for a cosine and be like, okay, it's an hour and 10 minutes, so that's really subtracting the 1.2. Alright. Can I figure out what my amplitude and what my shift up has been? All right, so remember, I've got some kind of shift that's happening here. I clicked the purple pen, you stupid thing. I color code for a reason. All right, so I know that my peak is up here at 5.73. If I subtract off that negative 0.15, or if I really just add it, that'll give me the total change from low tide to high tide. So if I add those two together, I get 5.88. Can I divide that in half? Okay. 2.94. Guess what? That's my amplitude. 2.94. And I can still use that to figure out my up and down shift. Because remember, this is 2.94 from my dip all the way up as well. But my dip was negative. So what is 2.94 minus that 0.15? 2.79? Yeah, because it goes just a little bit below. So if it was like completely above, we'd be fine. But it dips a little bit below that x-axis. All right. Now the last thing I've got to deal with is the stupid period change, right? So what is, do we want to do this in decimal? Do we want to do it in terms of pi? I was going to say I did it in decimal. So in terms of finding C, I know 2 pi divided by C needs to equal my 12 hours and 25 minutes, which I believe is 416 repeating as a decimal. I think 25 out of 60 is that. Multiply it by C. Oh, we can actually just do this in fractional form. I don't know what I'm thinking. So the 12.416 in decimal form is 149 over 12. So multiplying both sides by C gives me 2 pi equals 149 divided by 12 times C. And then all I got to do is flip and multiply. So I've got it as 24 pi over 149. Okay. Now part C in the homework is plug in where you think like 5 p.m. is and figure out how high the water is. Well, remember, you got to add 12 to 5 p.m. because they do everything in 24-hour time. So it's really plugging in 17. So part C is plugging in 17. And I believe you have to be in radian mode. And I'm going to force you guys to plug it in yourselves. Well, I'm done. What do you think? Do we need to talk scheduling for next year? A couple people no, a couple people yes.